Welcome back to AI for Founders. I'm your host, Ryan Estes, and today's episode is an absolute gem. I'm joined by Jenna Hannon, the powerhouse behind Hatter, where they are revolutionizing SEO for the AI era in what she calls LLM search. We kick things off hot with breaking news on Pentagon AI contracts, Nvidia's shifting ties with China, and the theater of tech politics that feels more like Gandalf versus Saruman than Washington versus Silicon Valley. Then Jenna really brings the heat, breaking down why venture world is consolidating, what services as software really means, and how bootstrapping can still win in a hype-driven market. Plus, we dive into how founders can actually show up inside AI-generated search results and why your next million-dollar company might start with a kiteboard, a notebook full of customer pain points. If you're building anything with traction, data, or dreams, this one's for you. First, some business. This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster, where top founders go to get on top podcasts. If you're a founder, you already know trust is everything, and nothing builds trust faster than hearing your story, your vision, your voice on a podcast that your audience already loves. Kitcaster is the secret weapon behind thousands of founder interviews on podcasts that drive business. It drives funding, and it creates fans. You focus on building your empire, let Kitcaster put the mic in your hand and the audience in your corner. From B2B tech to DTC stardom, it's a mouthful, they book the interviews that move the needle. So if you're ready to turn conversation into conversions, head to kitcaster.com and apply to be a guest today. Kitcaster, podcast interviews done for you. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Now, you and I know startups aren't built in boardrooms. They're built in the wild, during 3 a.m. bug fixes, botched launches, and that one meeting where everything almost fall apart. That's what Code Story is all about. It's a podcast where tech founders break down the make or break moments behind their products, what went wrong, what went right, and what nearly wrecked everything. Hosted by Noah Labhart, Code Story goes past the highlight reel and into the honest stuff. Late pivots, brutal bugs, and somehow coming out alive with a product people actually love. If you're in the build stage, or the scale stage, or the please let this feature work stage, I can relate. This show will speak to your soul. Listen to Code Story at codestory.co or wherever you get your podcast. Just search Code Story, it'll be right at the top. Because great startups aren't born, they're forged, one hard moment at a time. codestory.co. Hey, Jenna, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Hatter, but I want to jump into some news first. We had kind of some breaking news this week, or I mean, there's always breaking news. By the time this comes out, it's probably old news. But let's start with a couple of things. One, the Pentagon just handed out large contracts to a bunch of different AI companies, Grok being one of them. So, you know, the beef between Trump and Elon could be all smoke. You wonder what they're actually up to. And the second thing is the trade restrictions between Nvidia and China were lifted. So again, like Trump talks a mean game, but it also seems he's making these back deals to make sure for whatever reason. So I'd be interested in your take. You know, we have a White House now that is absolutely inundated with tech, very tech forward, but also seems to be at war with it at the same time. What's your take on all this?
You know, I am a Canadian born and raised, but obviously live in the US now and have been here for a while and spent a long time in Silicon Valley. My take is the government's still getting their head around tech and what's going on. Just the pace in terms of tech development currently is so fast. It's very difficult to regulate. So if you look at the difference between how US is handling it and Europe is handling it, Europe is trying to put a lot of regulation in place, which I think is very hard to do, and stifling a lot of the industry there. US was kind of, Trump came in and said, it seemed like the approach was, halt, let's figure out what's going on. And now he's had maybe a few folks whisper in his ear and say, hey, we're stifling progress. We do need to compete on this stage. I don't know if I have a comment on the the trade relations between China.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot under the hood there.
Yeah, there's so much you don't know. It is interesting, particularly between Trump and Elon, who are both absolute masters of propaganda and creating and disseminating information through their own personal networks. So there is definitely a theater. It kind of feels like there are a couple of wizards on the mountain that are fighting each other with lightning bolts, and I'm just in the Shire looking around, being like, "What are they up to?" I can't tell at all. But maybe something a little more grounded is, after several years, hard years of VC, we're seeing like the AI hype cycle absolutely invigorate venture capital. And you're seeing funding rounds and valuation rounds now that are astronomical. How has that kind of affected you? And how does that, and this might dovetail nicely into kind of your company?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been watching VC a lot lately and seeing what's happening in venture, just because I've been in tech for a long time and through several cycles. So you see history repeat itself. I think now in VC, we're coming out of a hype cycle in a very hot market that's been cooling outside of AI. And you're seeing a ton of consolidation, which is a huge portion of venture dollars is going to the same few companies, which I don't think we've seen for a while, which is kind of interesting because did you ever read the AngelList blog? They have a data scientist that wrote the blog for AngelList where he would analyze, I think still today, it's 20% of venture deals go through AngelList. So they have a lot of data.
Yeah. No, I didn't read that.
And so I went to their conference years ago and this data scientist spoke, and he was talking about when you analyze venture deals, the industry is obviously very power law, just like a lot of things in nature. There are a few outsized winners, and then there's a very long tail. And what he saw from the data was that it is very difficult to predict who the power law winners will be. So one of the best investing strategies that you can make is actually being in more deals, more diversification. And I think over the last decade of knowing several investors that are close friends and asking them about being in that industry, what a lot of them say to me is the companies I thought were going to be the winners in my portfolio are not the ones that are leading the pack. The ones I was most excited about and the ones that I wasn't so sure about. So an example of this is I'm a close friend of an investor who was the first check into Canva. Cool. And he really was like, I like these founders. I like their background. I don't know if this is going to work. The market for graphic design software is not huge today. I can't evaluate this as a traditional VC. And that one really surprised him. $40 billion company today, very unlikely success story. And so when I look at this consolidation, my concern is, are investors investing for returns or hype currently? Because if you're investing for returns, you probably run a different strategy versus hype, maybe better worded as markets. Where if you have a market that in which venture looks today, where there's the very big funds, and the big funds, the way the fund math works is you need very large outcomes, several very large outcomes to return that fund. And so you are only looking for these outsized unicorns, which by the nature are very hard to find at very high risk. Or on the flip side, you're a small fund, in which case, in order to raise your next fund, you need to share markups, which is not the ideal investing strategy because it means you also need to be in the hyped deals, which leads to, I think, where we are today, a lot of consolidation. So less founders receiving capital, which actually, I think in the long term leads to kind of a slowdown because you have less companies that are capitalized, even in smaller amounts, to start developing new go-to-market approaches, applications, technology.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like two different schools are emerging. That old guard of like, with, they have, let's say they're looking for founders with FANG expertise. They're looking for the pedigree of the Princetons, Harvards, MITs, that those guys always get big checks. They're looking for monster evaluations, and you just keep on like the runway treadmill forever. And then you have the other side. Maybe this is a little bit more on the Canvas side, where you have a non-conventional founder. I mean, she's Aussie, and what a great product. But you also have teams.
And was so young.
Yeah, so young. So you're seeing a lot of that now, where founders, they're kind of looking at like, hey man, we want to turn a unicorn out of like a handful team, 4 or 5 guys, gals, like, let's make this happen. So you see things like seed strapping, where they're not looking for big checks. They're looking for small checks and seeing how they can 100x that capital and make things happen immediately, which also seems to like follow the kind of instinctively the way AI products are really taking off now. The ones that just basically have massive traction early on is where you just hit a button and it works like magic, and you don't even ask questions, and those products just go absolutely bananas. And they're very small, maybe single use case, and again, just works clearly. So talk a little bit about your company. 1, explain it like I'm 5, and then 2, talk about how you've financed and like how you've made decisions about financing moving forward.
Yeah, of course. So our company is quite simple. We do SEO and LLM search. So this is, how do you get organic traffic? How do people find your business? It's a very old industry. It's been around for decades. And the way it's been done for decades the way it's been done has not changed in decades. We're suddenly seeing an inflection point where the industry is fundamentally changing with how people search. And so you're used to searching on Google and you find a list of search results. And now we're shifting to a world where the output is AI results. So for a business, what that means is that you need to show up essentially on both. So the inputs are the same. So the way that Google analyzes how to rank your business is very similar to how an LLM analyzes your business. So it's looking at what information on the web exists about your business to help answer questions about your business. And also what actual technical code it can read to understand your business better. So SEO is still the same fundamental inputs. You've got content SEO and technical SEO. It's just the output to your customer is different.
Amazing.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry, my apologies.
Oh, I was gonna say the innovation that we are doing that makes us different is kind of to your point of developing these AI technologies that are now faster than ever. We are leveraging AI to help teams better execute on SEO. So SEO is a lot of work behind the scenes. You're developing a lot of content for your website. You're doing a lot of optimizations that help you rank. And we are building tools through AI to help take that manual work and automate it.
Amazing. Now, is there an acronym yet for LLM's SEO? Is it SLLMO or something? Like what do we got?
This is the question right now. So we've been joking about this internally. So it started as GEO, generative engine optimization. The market doesn't really like that term because it sounds like geo, like geography. So then there was a flash moment where it was, people were rebranding it as AO. And now I think people are coming to terms with, let's just call it LLM search or AI search. Let's just go back to the basics here.
Yeah.
But use every SEO influencer that's in this space, you'll see has picked an acronym as trying to push it. So now we just have too many acronyms.
They're trying to run
which
with
is
it.
why yeah, exactly. Which is why I've kind of gone back to the basics with AI and LLM search.
Love it. Let's talk about how you guys financed. How did you guys raise a round?
We've been bootstrapped and we're actually raising right now, which is why VC is on my mind. The way that we run our business is we sell a full solution. So we sell essentially an SEO or AI search service. You are a business, you want to get more organic traffic. You're starting to see that traffic slow down due to the changes that's happening on Google from search to LLM traffic. And you want to make sure that you're showing up in those LLMs. So we still sell as essentially a service package.
Mhm.
And then the difference is in our delivery, we're giving a tech-enabled service. So that customer is getting a real-time dashboard. They can monitor their performance, our performance in real time. They can log in at any time. We give them tools to help us with the SEO. So if they want to edit content, for example. So if we're providing content and they want to pop in there and review it, we have a full editor that we provide to them. And then we give them full visibility. So I think the biggest thing that we found in going into the SEO market is when we talked to companies about their SEO agencies, they felt like it was a black box. We don't really know what our SEO agency is doing. We hope it's helping. So what the difference that we're building is we can take technology and we can show you exactly what's happening on the back end. Every single technical optimization we're making, every piece of content, and how that's translating into performance in terms of inbound customers.
Amazing. And is there temptation, since you kind of have a tech-enabled service, to raise around? Or, I mean, I'm a bootstrap guy. I love that, but you're sitting in LA. There's big pockets floating around looking for opportunities. How do you kind of approach the idea?
So we just started talking to investors, and I think there's some investors that we are jiving with, in the sense that our vision is, and I can't even own this term, because this term was given to me by an awesome investor named Kevin Mahaffrey, called service as a software. Yeah. So the model of software as a service, or SaaS, is being flipped. Where companies are now, for the first time ever, able to provide a service, which is what we do, and automate that on the back end with software, which gives a service software-like margins.
Yeah.
And to someone like Kevin, that's a very appealing proposition. I think what we're seeing is, for more mainstream investors, they're still coming around to this concept, and whether or not it's possible. It's an amazing thesis to believe that you could take some of these service businesses and give them software margins, but you actually have to prove that. And so I think there's some investors we're meeting with that share that thesis of service as a software, and that AI has unlocked that automation. And with the right expert team in a very specific domain, this is possible. But there's still investors that are not yet on board with that thesis, or don't believe it's possible to play out yet, and that we still need more innovation on the AI technology to be able to get there without human involvement.
100%. And I think it's a great medium point. I think it was Peter Thiel that talked about, service as a software. Because there's a lot of apprehension about AI, particularly with people that aren't kind of like on the leading edge of this stuff. A lot of enthusiasm, obviously, but I'm in my own little bubble, where other people are like, I don't like to use my debit card. I write checks. There's people in varying stages of tech adoption, but service as a software, like, basically keeps the human in the loop, which I think is going to be a very important component for a very long time. How efficient is that person in the loop, and what decisions are they making, comes down to like the quality of the service, I think, where it's like, hey, we have this automated. This is where I'm, QCing it in some capacity, or adding a little something. When I was kind of doing research on you, that was a great quote that stood out. It said, AI is a tool, the ideas, insight, experience, that still comes from me. How soon do you think you'll start to let AI have the insight and experience, or ideas?
Yes, I agree with you in the sense that I still feel strongly that today we're at a place where human in the loop is more powerful, especially as a marketer. The power in marketer is the human insight. You are selling to humans. Marketing is a very human craft. The pieces so the way that we see it splitting is that there's, like any job function, there's a lot of manual work that's repetitive. And those are the pieces. So you see this in finance. Finance is there's a lot of pieces on the analysis side that are very repetitive. But at the end of the day, you're doing that analysis to present insight that's going to drive your business. And often that insight is very human. The same thing is the case in marketing. So the way that we see it with our business is that our end customers, which are businesses that are looking to drive more organic inbound, they're looking to drive more customers at a lower price than advertising. What they want in a service provider is they don't want to think about all that manual work. They want you to do it. So our job is to figure out how do we do that faster so we can provide better service to them. But what they want from us is also a human that understands them and their business. And so I still think we are a ways from that human interaction or that human expert that they're working with. So for us, we look at it as the service part. A lot of that is actually the human interaction you have, the monthly or biweekly phone call you have with an SEO or AI search expert that's helping understand your business and then put that into a project plan that then their software is helping them to automate and execute faster. And I think it's the same when I look across marketing. There's definitely a lot of it that could be automated, but that fundamental human insight, AI is not there today because marketing is about differentiation. And so you need to have a lot of context to do something different. And AI is not great. AI is great about context. It's not great about doing something different.
I love that. AI is great I like to use it as kind of like a rough draft with ideas. I was really hesitant to give it my ideas muscle because it's something I value about myself, but you can be like, hey, give me 21 ideas about XYZ. And then now you're an editor and you're like, okay, no, actually those two I really like. And then you can start to expand upon it. I kind of equate it to like being a sculptor as opposed to a painter. With a painter, you're trying to put your ideas on. And then with a sculpting, you're trying to take everything off of your idea, so it could be interesting there. Now, I want to take a quick break here and let everybody know that Jenna has agreed to break down step by step how companies can utilize LLM SEO for their own companies and what's going to differentiate between doing specific tasks for the LLMs. We're going to put that on YouTube. So go to YouTube right now and watch that short video if you want to know how you implement some of these ideas. Now, Jenna, when I look at you, there's something I see that I really like. And that is right behind your right shoulder is a big square that says deals. And being in the agency world and service provider for many, many years, you realize that really it comes down to being a sales organization. So when you think about creating repeatable sales processes for your service agency, how do you guys go about it?
Oh, this is the $1 million question. This is the hardest part of our industry because SEO is super highly fragmented. There's a ton of service providers, there's freelancers, there's agencies. You as a business have a ton of options. So it's very hard to stand out because you have a lot of competition. For us, I don't think we differentiate in the tactics to get to the customer. The big differentiation for us is in the product and service that we provide, which is it's not an SEO black box. You can see exactly what we're doing. We give you full visibility and we give you the controls. So if you want to log into your dashboard and you want the dials to run your own organic marketing, we provide you those. We're also just providing you with an expert, so a service on top. So to us, we think we're fundamentally a different beast than the agencies that you might be considering us against. But in terms of tactics, well, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah. SEO.
How to reach businesses. SEO, exactly. The funny thing about SEO is it's hard to rank. It's the hardest thing to rank for because everyone in the space is an SEO expert. So you're competing against the best. But a lot of most of our businesses today actually come through LinkedIn. So most of them have come through me writing content on LinkedIn. And the way that I do content on LinkedIn is quite simple. Every week I sit down and say, what did I learn this week, either about our customers or the industry? What can I share that will provide value to businesses? And that's what I do every single week is I write, here's what I learned. And if those insights are helpful to folks, they reach out to us.
Amazing. It's so cool. So LinkedIn as a driver, LinkedIn is very hot or cold for me as well. Like sometimes you just have a thread where it works and clicks, and other times not so much. Do you find, and I seem to be throttled right at about 1,200 views per week with whatever I do. Do you notice kind of similar patterns with LinkedIn as a marketing channel?
I think it's like any marketing channel, it's a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
So I think the most common thing is I was a fractional CMO before I started Hatter. And I think the biggest problem I saw coming into companies was doing too much. We're trying to do all the channels. And by the nature of that, we're doing none of the channels well. But as a business, you really only need one or two marketing channels to work to be a very large business. You go into businesses. I was at Uber previously. You go to a business like Uber, we usually had about two main marketing channels that were driving most of our acquisition. And so a lot of marketing is figuring out how to unlock a channel, which takes time. And I feel like LinkedIn has been that for me. I had a very hot start with LinkedIn. So I told my story about my time at Uber on LinkedIn, and the views on that, it was huge. It was like 150,000 views on my second post on LinkedIn. So I'm like, oh, this platform's amazing. And then after that, all the posts bombed.
Yeah.
And then I realized you just have to keep going. And so I try to be very consistent. I try to write articles every 2 weeks, and some will go. I noticed LinkedIn is a very slow burn. So unlike other platforms where if the post, like X is very much, the post has to succeed in the first hour for it to continue to be shown. Instagram is very similar. LinkedIn has a much slower burn. I will see articles that I've written 5 days later start to catch momentum.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I've dialed in what works versus what doesn't, other than the high level, or call it generic learning, which is the more value you can provide for folks on there, the more engaged they're going to be with your content. And so I keep going back to, what did I learn this week that's going to provide value to someone else that's trying to build a business?
Nice. I'm going to give that a shot. Although, the biggest thing I've ever had go viral is about Home Depot hot dogs. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't know what you're doing out here.
True. I haven't tried that strategy. So some folks will do the memes and get a lot of engagement with that. I haven't tried that strategy. I've heard it's also hit or miss. Some memes hit. That's the nature of a meme.
Yeah.
Most do not.
Cool. Jenna, you keep giving us these little hints. You live in Calgary, you're in LA now, you worked at Uber, you bootstrapped a startup. Like, how did all this come about? How do you find yourself sitting in the seat you are today? Also, on your left shoulder, it says feel good. I also really appreciate that too.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about erasing this before starting, and I was like, you know what? We might as well just show how the sausage gets made. So my story is a bit unique. So I born and raised in Calgary, didn't know much about technology, didn't know anything about Silicon Valley. Went to school in LA at USC and started my career in the entertainment industry. Quickly found entertainment was not my tribe. And I got into the hobby of kite surfing.
What did you do in entertainment?
I worked at a talent agency. So
Cool.
I worked at a talent agency called Prince Potter Young, and I did internships in the music business prior. So it was at Universal, was my college internship in the licensing department. And so I figured I wanted to build a career in Hollywood and entertainment. And I didn't love the structure of that business. I didn't find it the most intellectually stimulating. And my hobby after college was kite surfing. And through kite surfing, I met a venture capitalist. This is actually the VC who was the first investor in Canada. So it comes full circle.
Cool.
An investor named Bill Ty, met him kite surfing, and he introduced me to basically tech and entrepreneurship. And I was just fascinated. It blew my mind that people just came up with an idea and built a company. And I actually met Mel, the founder of Canva, during that journey on a kite surfing trip.
Cool.
And she was very young and had this vision for Canva. And I thought it was so cool. People were just building stuff, just coming up with stuff and building stuff. And so when I was 22, I was working in entertainment, and I had met Bill, and I called Bill, and I asked him if I could come to San Francisco and shadow him. You know, you're 22, you don't know any better. You assume that's a reasonable question. And Bill was like, sure. So I drove up to San Francisco, and I went to pitch meetings with him. And in between the pitch meetings, he would explain to me how these businesses work, why this was interesting, why this wasn't interesting. And I just fell in love with Silicon Valley and tech. And so through that journey, I found the first startup that I went to work for, and ended up working at several startups. Since found my way to Uber in 2016, and actually was hired to work on Uber Eats when it was a test product within Uber. So Uber it was kind of a fun structure under Travis, where Travis would essentially allow anyone to explore an idea. If you could get enough people internally on board to run some tests for a new idea, he would let it run. So he wouldn't shut things down. So people internally were coming up with all sorts of things. And when I was hired to work across all of these strike tests that were happening. That the company was like, we don't want to put too much resources into these, but try to help some of these internal entrepreneurs figure out how to go to market with these businesses. So Uber Eats was just one of the ones that I was staffed on. And then, of course, you know the story today, that business ended up becoming successful. When I started on it, it was actually a different concept. The concept was, we have all these cars on the road as Ubers that are transporting riders. And we have a slowdown during lunch when everyone is eating. But these cars are on the road with excess capacity. They have empty trunks. So the initial idea was, let's fill the trunks with sandwiches and burritos and let people order in a 2-hour window that particular item for lunch for the day. And that worked okay. People were ordering. We had a very specific radius, but we weren't selling out every day. But those customers kept writing into us and saying, hey, can we choose a restaurant? Is it possible to order from a particular restaurant? And so a team in Toronto said, okay, we'll take that and we'll run with it. And they started building a version of this experiment where folks could order from a restaurant. And that's now Uber Eats as it is today. Once that started working, essentially we were launching a new city every single week. And we did that for about 70 weeks. It was wild.
Amazing.
So that's kind of my story. But I've always been a marketer. So getting to SEO and getting to marketing automation seemed like a logical next step after my journey at Uber.
Hey, founders, let me ask you this. Are you building with AI or getting left behind by it? If you're serious about scaling smarter, faster, and bolder, you need to check out aiforfounders.co. It's your go-to resource for cutting through the noise and actually using AI to grow your startup. Each week, AI for Founders drops a sharp, no-fluff newsletter, dives deep with expert guests on the podcast, and hosts monthly workshops where you can get your hands dirty with the real tools and strategies. Whether you're pre-seed or Series B and beyond, launching something new, or just staying sharp, AI for Founders gives you the edge you need to win in 2025 and beyond. Hit aiforfounders.co to subscribe to the newsletter, tune into the podcast, and grab your spot in the next workshop. And it's all free. Build smarter, move faster, think bolder with AI for Founders. Now back to the show. There was rumors back in the day that Uber was this weird boys club and they're acting foul. You have any experience with that, or was it pretty chill?
It was not chill. It was not chill. Actually, that's partly why I went there. I have 2 older brothers, so So I always grew up like trying to keep up with two older brothers that are very close in age. And I remember I was working at a startup and I was like, this is too chill.
Yeah.
I want to go to a place where people are really motivated and really passionate about the mission. And I remember explaining to friends at the time, like, I think I'm going to go to Uber. And they're like, you're crazy. Everyone talks about how working there is so difficult and that the culture's terrible. And I got in there and I loved it. I was like, wow, people here are like hard charging and rude. And everyone, but in a good way, people care deeply about this mission. Because once you got in there, you were like, this product's amazing. Like the freedom it gives people is game changer. I remember the first time I tried the product. I was like, wow, I can travel around San Francisco. I don't have to go home before midnight to get on the BART so I don't miss the last train. I literally press a button and someone takes me home and I'm safe. This is wild. So I think that the internal matched the external perception in the sense that it was a very hard charging culture. The expectations were very high and the speed was incredible. Just the expectation of how fast you need to go to keep up was wild. So very long hours. The bad stuff, definitely what any company that hires 6,000 employees in a year is going to have an HR problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was expected. It could have been handled better. There's definitely some missteps throughout the journey, some leadership missteps. But I still fundamentally believe that it's a great company.
Yeah. Why'd you leave?
It had just changed. So I was there through the IPO. And we went from being what felt like a startup journey to a public company. That's when the trained executives came in. We had to put a lot more structure and process in place. So it just felt like a different company. I had been there for 4 years and it was 4 years of massive growth. And so, you start to get tired of the long hours. And also you've gone through so much change. Like we had so many reorgs. You were getting reorged every 2 months. Projects were changing. New leadership was coming in. So I just felt like it was time to try something new. I unfortunately left in 2020, February 2020.
Ooh.
And I bought a one-way ticket to Asia.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I bought a one-way ticket to Asia in February. I was like, I'm just going to go travel Asia and I'm going to think about what I want to do next.
Red
And then I
light
was
sirens
there for
everywhere.
a month. Exactly. I was in Asia and it was empty. It was spooky.
Wow.
I was on a plane. I took a flight from Bali to Singapore and I was on a full 747, 2 people. And
Wow.
that's where I was like, all right, I think it's time to get out of here. And I returned, I think it was like 3 days before borders closed.
Wow.
And then that was time to figure out, okay, what's next here?
Yeah. What a story. Amazing. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes. Yeah,
right.
let's do it.
Here we go. Let's say you sell Hatter tomorrow for $1 billion. What's your next project?
Oh, that's a tough one. My co-founder and I are actually very passionate about finance automation, and we have this belief that a lot of what's happening, the manual work in financial analysis, can be automated and treated like analytics. And if we weren't building Hatter, we would be building that.
Love it. If you were to start a company tomorrow that would net you $1 million at the end of the year, what would that company do?
It's funny in the startup journey and figuring out where we wanted to focus, we found millions of these niche things where we're like, if we just did that, trying to think of what some of those were. They were simple things like e-commerce tax tools, getting very niche. But I don't think I could give you one of like, if I just wanted to make $1 million, what would I do? Because maybe I might be doing that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. If you were entering college today and you weren't studying entertainment business, what would you study based on what you know now?
Oh, hands down, computer science.
Computer science still?
Yeah. So I when I went to college, I started in journalism, and the computer science school didn't have enough students, and they presented to our journalism class about computer science, and they gave us a pamphlet with a puzzle that you could go home and do and see if you were interested. And I went home and did this puzzle where you had to code this robot through a maze. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. Maybe I should actually look at this and take some courses. And I called my dad. My dad's a geologist and he does oil exploration. And he's like, oh, sweetie, the computer scientists, they don't make very much money. These are like the people who sit in the basement and they code. And they're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole in the oil industry. I don't think you would be happy doing that. So decided not to. And then 2 years after college, ended up in tech. And it was like, that would have been a great, being technical in the space would have been a great skill to have. And even now I'm fascinated talking to my co-founder getting into the details of building.
Yeah.
So if I could do it over again.
Yeah. Now senior engineers were just getting like draft picks for professional athletes with $10 million annual contracts. Incredible.
That's true. That $100 million signing bonus for the AI PhDs looks nice.
It does look real nice. Okay. Last one here, and probably the hardest one. With everything you know now, what's something that you wish you knew earlier?
Oh man, so much. I'll give one that I think is useful for founders. I think that we've learned that the journey to product market fit is very different than we expected. Kind of the conventional wisdom is you have this idea and it's all about the idea, and then you go and get funding for that, and then you figure out how to make this idea come to life. But it's not like that. Finding product market fit is actually finding a problem that you are obsessed with. Find a problem that you care about solving and understand deeply how that problem works for that customer. And don't build anything until you've spoken to 100 customers. And so the way that we approach how to validate an idea is so different. We no longer start with an idea and then say, let's go figure out how to make that come to life. We start with a problem. And we just search for problems. And there's problems everywhere. I remember years ago, I was in a car with one of the founders of Uber, Garrett Camp, and he's obsessed with this. He travels around with a little notebook, and he just looks for problems. And we're in the car, and he's like, what do you guys think of air conditioning? We're like, it's not great. You're always fiddling with it. It's like too strong. Temperature's never fully right. He was like, what would make air conditioning better? People in the car are like, oh, what? It's weird that air conditioning doesn't detect the temperature outside. And he's like, can someone look up the air conditioning market? How big is the air conditioning market? And then someone searches and was like, this is how big it is. And he's just taking notes. And he's like, cool. 10 minutes later, something similar. What do you guys think about this? Is this a problem? Takes notes. And so I wish I knew that earlier. There's so much lore in Silicon Valley and startup culture around like, you have to have an idea to start a company. You don't. You just need to be good at finding problems and talking to people and listen. That is the biggest piece, is understanding why someone needs to solve that problem fundamentally before you ever build anything.
Rochelle, Jenna Hannon, this has been extraordinary. I'm assuming LinkedIn is the best place to connect with you?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on there regularly.
Cool. We will link that in the show notes here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the time.
This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, Moburst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result? Marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.